Thank you, class, for coming in so quietly. Let's get started. So today we're going to work on an element of art called line. That's one of the first elements of art. And we're also going to work on another element of art with this project that's color. So we're going to work on focusing on line, color, and movement, and how you can create that through some basics instruction around how you do line and what you do with it, and then how you add color to that and what happens when you add color. So you're going to learn to use line on construction paper. We're going to start with white paper as practice, and we're going to continue to kind of learn what happens with that. And then by doing this, using this element of line to create your illusion of, or a sense of movement, you'll see what happens and how other artists use that as well. The concept we're going to be studying is basically we're going to start off first with kind of creating a sketch that's non-objective. That means we're not going to be using any type of images you recognize. It's not going to be like an eye or a face or anything like that. But it's going to be very abstract, very simple. And then this, based off of that, is going to help us to kind of create something that looks like it's moving. It can be inspired by real things in life, like even like clouds or trees and how those move, and the line you see in that. Those are things that can inspire it, but we're not going to actually draw the actual image. Once we finish working on this project, you're going to learn some basic tools we're going to be using. Using a pencil, we're going to learn how to use oil pastels, and then the type of paper that we choose, the type of construction paper you use in your final project, whatever color you choose, you'll see the impact of oil pastels on that. So the tool you're mainly going to learn to use is oil pastels, pencils, and paper. So as we work on this project, we're going to learn a little art history as well. We're going to look at some artists that made line very famous. Artists like Vincent van Gogh or Pablo Picasso. How they took line and actually infused that into their paintings. And you can see the movement in their paintings. If you look at like Starry Night, that's a great example of Vincent van Gogh's painting where the sky looks like it's moving. We're going to try to imitate that with our own art. So, finalizing what we're going to do, some of the final steps that we're going to focus on. First off, we're going to end up creating our own final project, which is going to end up being on a piece of paper that's 12 by 12. That final oil pastel drawing is going to show that you've done something that creates movement or the illusion of movement. And then by the end of this project, you'll have a cognitive understanding of line and the element of art and how that makes and creates movement. And you also will use line in an effective form to create motion, which is part of, that's another word for movement or something that's in action. And then I want you to also kind of do a little research with your project to kind of see what artists maybe some of your work might be imitating, so you can find some artists that you like or the artists we've talked about to apply that to your final project. So, stages of this project. We're going to learn about oil pastels and what they can do, so we get some practice with that. You're also going to get a lesson on line and movement in art and what that is. So we'll get some examples, watch a few videos maybe, touch on some other artists that do those kind of things. And then we'll also do a connection between the element of art and how that connects with other elements like color, which is going to be a part of this project. So our final timeline and how things are going to work, I'm going to probably give you about 6 to 10 days to work on this. You have plenty of time. You don't have to feel rushed. You can get a lot of your research done, get a full understanding of how you want to complete your artwork. And then your project is going to be finished by that final last 3 days that I give you. You're going to probably finalize your project around that time. So once you finish your project, you're going to share it with your class. You can talk about what your inspiration was, maybe some of the artists that influenced you. We're going to have a little assessment based on the presentation that you do for the students, for your classmates, for your peers. And then we're also going to do a little critiquing. We'll talk about critiquing, what that is, and how you can look at a piece of art and kind of determine what you want to get out of it, or what you feel from seeing it, or maybe areas that could have been improved. Those are things we'll talk about in our final stages of this project. So the materials we're going to use is paper. We're going to start off with some white paper for our sketching and our practice. Then we're going to use construction paper, even textured construction paper. And then oil pastels and pencil will be the tools that you use to do this. In just a minute, I'm going to give you a little demonstration of what line can look like. So let me take a seat real quick, and I'll show you guys what, I'll put that up on the Elmo, and we'll demonstrate what you guys can do. All right, class, so everyone should have paper and a pencil. We're going to start with some of the basics on that. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a spider web to practice some of our movement. We're going to start with a dot in the middle of our paper, and then you're going to draw lines out to the side. You're just going to draw lines that go out to the edge. Just draw a bunch of lines that go out to the edge. Just something like that. And then, now I'm going to draw some lines that look like movement to make it look like there's some movement going on our paper. So I'll just draw some curved lines. And if I draw curved lines that are connected going opposite directions of each other, you'll start to see that it's going to look like there's some movement happening just by doing these little curved lines in here that we're doing. If I do this throughout my drawing here, it'll almost look like this piece of paper has got some kind of major movement going on. Good practice. If I keep adding some of those similar curves I just did as we go. And right now I'm using a Sharpie instead of a pencil, so you guys need to be able to see it on the Elmo, because I want to make sure that you can see what I'm doing. And we're going to do a lot of practice steps just like this with demos of it, so then you kind of get a really good feel for what you're trying to draw. Okay? So I can just even continue to draw my lines in here, little quick ones that are curved. And if you want more pronounced curves to it, you draw more of a curved line. So then you have a pretty curved line like that. That's an example of just doing it with the curved line. I'll show you what it looks like if I add some color in just a bit. But if we do it with straight lines, we can also get a pretty good effect out of it as well. So if I didn't take some straight lines, say I just do some straight lines like this, as an example, and then I want to make sure I have some motion in this, I just draw some curved lines in here to connect to each other. Do the same thing over here. Keep adding it. It's going to make it so it looks like there's some curved action going on in there. And what's going to really help this is when we start to add color. Once we add color to our drawing, that's always going to bring in a new dimension to it. It's going to add a little bit more motion and movement to it. So right now it looks like we have a few rows going that have some movement to it. And I'm going to come back in here and add a little color to it. So I'm going to get one of my pastels here. Let's go with blue. Blue is one of my favorite colors, so we'll do a little blue in here. And if I do a little blue pastel and I start off a little dark here, and if you notice, I'm just doing it on the edge right now because I'm trying to bring some curved dimension to the drawing. So I'm only doing a little bit of color in here. And then I want to do the same thing on the other side. And if you start dark by the line, that's going to help. And as you get lighter, as you go to the middle, you start to get lighter with your curve. And that's going to bring a little bit more dimension to it. I don't know if you can see that there. It starts to make it look like it's curved a little bit. And if I do the same thing on the other curve, but I'm curving down with this curve now, it almost looks like we're making waves here. So then you have some dimension starting. You start looking like you have a little ribbon that's going. Just from doing this little curved color in here, adding this color that's going the same direction as the other lines we're doing, and then being really light with your color in the middle top part of it. And it looks almost like we have a curved ribbon. So those are examples of what we'll do to make our project work. You guys can start working on yours and practicing it. We'll practice and do some different styles, and we'll look at some other techniques as we create our final project, which ultimately will look like it's a curved presentation of line with motion. All right, class, we'll go ahead and get started.